So let's talk about Dale Talon, shall we? So in my Twitter rant, I went on quite a bit of a rant on how the beginning of the end for this current era of the Florida Panthers started when Eric Gudbranson was traded. Now, let me be clear for all of the naysayers out there. In no way whatsoever am I saying, as I did say in the Twitter rant, in no way is Eric Gudbranson a great player. Never, ever will he ever, and has never lived up to where he was drafted overall, third overall, okay? I get that part. That's not the point. Never was the point of the rant. The point was, at that point, Talon had been stripped of his personnel duties. It was starting to be run by the analytic people. Tom Rowe was in the background pining for the job of coach. There were a lot of self-inflicted wounds allowed by management and ownership to let this happen. And so a series of moves, they say that Talon signed off on these things. I don't believe it. He didn't have a say anyway, right? He was stripped of those powers. And so after the most successful season in franchise history, they trade away Eric Gudbranson, who is probably the future captain of the team, and subsequently lost more players in the expansion draft. Marchessault, Smith. Talon decided to protect Bukestad and Petro. Obviously, in hindsight, huge mistakes. No defense for that. No excuse. Huge mistakes. Huge mistakes. And, deep down, I'm sure Talon knows that too. All GMs make mistakes. All people make mistakes. I'm not defending Talon 100%. I'm not saying that Talon has never made a mistake. I'm not saying that Talon isn't even part of where we are right now. But he's been better than not for the Panthers since he's been here. And the intangibles that I was talking about, people like some, especially in Vancouver, some very, very smart people wanted to rip on me about using the word intangibles. Gudbranson's best year as a pro was the year before he was traded. And he was fitting in nicely with the Panthers in his role. We're not expecting scoring from him. We need a stay-at-home defenseman that's willing to rough people up, and he would do that. The Panthers don't have that now. So once that happened, the identity of the team changed drastically. An identity that the Panther fans loved, an identity that they wanted to keep going, led by Gerard Gallant, who was also kind of a fiery old school guy. And they basically, management and ownership allowed Talon to be stripped of his duties, which then stripped this club of sort of achieving and executing the blueprint that Talon said that he was going to implement when he started. So it's not Gudbranson's quality of play. Vancouver fans are like, "Oh, we'll take him back. You can have him back." And that's not what I'm saying. It's not about getting him back. I don't care about that. That's not even the point. Only a dummy would think that. That's not the point. The point is there was certain things set in motion by a needless deal. Look, we got McCann back for it. That's fine. He's certainly valuable with Trocheck hurt, But, is this team markedly better with McCann and not with Gudbranson? I don't think so. I think it's marginal at best. And the other thing is that if Gudbranson was never dealt and this team was kept more intact after that successful run, then Talon would not have been in the position in the expansion draft to make these hard calls on who he wanted to keep and who he wanted to let go. Let's keep in mind, both Marchessault and Smith, the Smith was Talon as far as acquiring him, but the contract extension that Riley was signed to at $5 million a year, Talon did not want that. He did not sign off on that, and he wanted to get rid of that contract. And if you look at Riley Smith last year was great. Look, Vegas was lightning in a bottle. I get all that stuff. This year's Riley Smith is what we know, and this is what we know. This is what we know. Riley Smith this year, this is the Riley Smith that he really is, okay? And look, Marchessault was lightning in a bottle too. Fine player. He was going to have to get paid, and he did get paid, $6 million or whatever. And Talon wasn't going to pay that for him, a small undersized player that's probably going to be pushed around in the playoffs, when he has another core that he built that needs to be signed long term. So there were many factors in play here. Talon's a lot smarter than most critics, and he had a plan in place. It didn't come to fruition the way he wanted to. Look, it happens. Okay, it's not the end of the world. It's just a game. But what happened to set this team back years and years and years? They basically destroyed his blueprint in an instant. They basically destroyed what he was trying to build in an instant, because the Gudbranson trade, it wasn't about the player and what he put on the stat sheet. It was about the overall makeup of the team mentally. A lot of the things that don't show up on a score sheet or a stat sheet. So, people can poo-poo it all they want. It doesn't matter. Those of us that have covered the team for years know the ins and outs of what's going on here. And, it goes all the way back, to the David Booth trade and all these other things that happened where Talon made a shrewd move when he did have control, and it did work out. The Booth trade worked out. But this situation with Gudbranson, where he didn't have control over them, the Tom Rowe thing happened, and the Gallant being on the curb thing, it was a disaster. It was a disaster, and all the momentum was killed due to needlessly tinkering with a team that didn't need tinkering. That's it. And you look, if Gudbranson was still a Panther, I don't think this team is where it is. If Gudbranson was still a Panther, or at least not traded in that way at that time, I don't think that Talon is in that position during the expansion draft to make those hard calls. I think it's a much different situation. So for those that think that my point was that Gudbranson is the reason that the Panthers are terrible now, it's ridiculous. Of course I don't mean that. It's just so stupid to think that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the identity of the team changed. The course of this organization changed. Everything that Talon built was ripped apart, not by his own doing, and he had to try to pick up the pieces, and it was very difficult to do. He made some mistakes. I don't excuse or defend everything that he's done, but he's been better than not, and that's it. So, unfortunately for Panther fans, we were close to turning the corner a little bit. And now we're back to almost like less than square one. I don't even know where we are now, but it's ugly, and it's I don't know if it can get worse, but it's going to be a little bit of a road to hoe here before we get better. I'm thinking 2 years. Get Hepo Niemi in here, get Tippett up, really get this youth movement going, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, hope that was clear enough. Sorry for another long rant, and we'll be doing another one of these very soon. Take care.